Hello, and welcome to What is Innovation, the podcast that explores the reality of a word in danger of losing its meaning altogether. I'm your host, Jared Simmons, and I'm so excited to have Nik Froehlich on the show today. Nik is the founder and CEO of Sara Tasa, a California-based custom software development company. Nik, welcome to the show. Nik, it's so good to have you on the show. Thank you so much for agreeing to join us.
Thank you, Jared. I'm very happy to be here. I'm looking forward to our discussion.
Yes, so glad to have you, Nik Froehlich, CEO, founder of Sara Tasa. All right, let's dive right in. What, in your mind, is innovation?
Well, I do want to say that I view innovation through the lens of business and technology. Innovation is utilizing the tools that technology can offer to make improvements to businesses. Now, there's a lot there, but that's what innovation is to me.
I like it. There's a lot to discuss there. When you think about utilizing tools, tell me more about that, because I can imagine there are a lot of different types of tools and there's a lot of different ways to utilize them. So just kind of unpack that for me a little bit, if you would.
Sure. So the technology creates things, all kinds of things: television, telephone, iPhone, smartphones, apps, chat, video. These are all tools from a very micro level to, I guess you could say, a tool would be verifying that an email is, in fact, a valid email very quickly. That's a tool. And we're using a tool right now, video, podcast. So the way I define tools, it's anything that technology allows you to do something. It's very wide, right?
Yeah, right. The other aspect of your definition that I think is really interesting is it sort of implies that you have to have an intent. I think a lot of times if we think about a hammer or a weapon or something like that, we understand the concept of, oh, well, it wasn't the hammer that did this, or it wasn't the weapon that did this. It was the intent of the user. And I think in your definition of innovation, I like it because it highlights utilizing the tool, but also what matters is what you choose to do with it.
Yeah, I think that's the important part. That really defines whether or not you're using that tool to innovate or not innovate. That's the critical part there, right? You could use technology to create a tool to do something very specific.
Right.
A hammer has that's not technology, but it applies. Tools are tools. To use a hammer to do something very, very specific. And then there's tools that are created through technology that really don't have much of a specific need or purpose, maybe yet, or they will, which is interesting as well. So yes, for it to be innovative, I think for me, the tool is something technology provides, but that is used in a way to make something better than it was before. And we can unpack it better all day long for business. Again, I view it through the lens of business.
Right. Yeah, and better does have a lot of potential elements and aspects to it. If you're thinking about profit from a business standpoint, also thinking about potential societal or environmental impact that could have a definition of better attached to it. There's a lot of different versions of better, I think, to your point. And I also like the way you sort of highlighted that the tool and the innovation can be separated from a time standpoint. The tool could be invented by a technologist, and the innovative way of using it might not be discovered or realized for some time in between. It might be a different person. It might be a different company, it might be a different industry that finds a way to use that to move innovation forward.
Yeah, and I think that happens a lot in technology, more so in maybe our physical tools like creating a wheel or a hammer. I'm not sure how many times that has been adapted to something else that you could call innovative. Perhaps if you really dig into it. But in technology, you're going to see that a lot more often, where a technologist, somebody excited that can write code, creates something new and different. And it's exciting because it just hasn't been done. Maybe it was a complex algorithm or some kind of challenge, and then some new technology and put it together. And now we have this thing, but there's no innovation built into it. It doesn't have that yet. It's innovative, I guess, in its own right. If you just look at it, it's an improvement of something. But the way I view it, it's not innovative for business yet. But yes, you can find it and find a different use for it that was never intended, never, ever even conceptualized. And now that becomes an innovative tool, a technology tool, innovative to make business better.
Right, right. Yeah, I love the focus of your lens on business because you're right. It kind of depends on how you draw the circle, right? Something might be innovative within its domain, within its specific technological area, but really not have a broader purpose yet or a broader application yet that would apply to make it innovative for business. And it takes a certain type of mindset and a certain lens to come along and say, oh, yeah, well, this thing that lets you put very thin layers of silicon down, well, why don't we use that for this? And then we can sell this to these people to solve this problem versus the chemist or chemical engineer or whomever that first figured out, oh, we can do this at this level. Making that leap into the world of business is a specific type of innovation, I think, is what I'm taking away from what you're saying.
Yes, yes. That is my focus in our business and what we do and how I view those words. On the other side of the coin, there is somebody that's trying to use technology to create a tool that helps a business innovate that doesn't necessarily do that. So maybe it's nice to have,
right?
But is it innovative, right? Maybe technically speaking, this person that created this, it's like, wow, this is, in the view of software development, this is innovative. This hasn't been done yet before. This is really neat. Wow, well, every business should use this to innovate. But that's not the case necessarily, right? Because you have to connect all the dots there to see whether or not that falls into the classification of innovating for the company.
Right, right. Yeah. It feels like what comes into the equation then is the end user or the customer and what problem they're trying to solve or what solution a business is trying to offer. That kind of enters into the equation when you put that business context around it versus just the pure technology or the pure advancement of invention, kind of the difference between invention and innovation, maybe.
Yeah. So when you're looking at the innovation for the businesses, I view it as several different categories, actually, if you'd like to jump into that.
Yeah, let's do it.
And these are kind of a high level, which I've classified. And some of them are, well, they eventually all become required. Let me back up 1 second. In my experiences here, when speaking to business owners and their desire, we're just speaking about using technology to innovate, I find that there's basically two types. There's the innovators. They've identified a problem and they need a solution, and they've heard or they think that there's some technology that can help them. And then there's the, what I call or term, the screaming and kicking ones. The ones that don't want to spend more money.
Right.
We've been doing it this way forever, and they realize that they don't have a choice. Either they innovate using technology, and I'm talking specific technology tools, and we could jump into what those are.
Sure.
And who some of those kicking and screaming ones are.
Yeah.
And they're forced to do this. And it's not a fun journey for them because not only do they not understand technology, so it's really hard.
Right.
It's not tangible necessarily. They don't understand what they're building and why it costs so much, anything. But they're forced to do it, which is no fun. So the various categories that I have, well, there's some obvious one. Quality control. Quality control should be important to any business, whether or not you're offering consulting, advice, product, a service of any kind. There are so many tools available in technology now that can ensure a higher standard of quality control that you can measure it. And that's important, as we know, for any business. Optimizing processes.
Right.
You're doing something, optimizing that process so that you can do more of it with the same amount of people, or you can do it at less cost, or you could do more of it at the same cost. So optimizing processes. Remaining relevant. This is an important one.
Mm-hmm.
Remaining relevant is if you're the only company left that doesn't offer a mobile app for you to turn, let's say, your easy chair or whatever, automatically save the position and hold it, you're starting to lose relevance because the market is changing and they're expecting it.
Right.
So you have to innovate. You need to use these tools to innovate to remain relevant.
Mm.
And we've seen entire industries wiped out very quickly. The first one when internet came around, I don't know if you remember, the travel agency was just wiped out in a couple of years.
Right.
Gone.
Yeah. Amazing.
And they didn't innovate. They didn't buy into that. That just happened when we've seen it happen before in other industries. So there's also maximizing your talent using tools to innovate so that your most talented people are focused on doing what they're best at.
Right.
And freeing them up from the things that they don't have to be doing. There's quality of life in work, right? That's innovating. If it's important for you, maybe to retain good talent, it's the quality of life. And we've seen some examples of that. Compliance,
Right.
regulatory compliance.
Mm.
So there's all these things here that companies, these are changing things. These change on the quality control or optimizing processes don't necessarily change on their own, but to remain competitive to the others, you're going to have to do something.
I see.
Actually, I will say it does change.
Mm-hmm.
I had a client, it's a large international company and distribution, big equipment, power generation stuff. And they ran their distribution on using Excel spreadsheets.
Wow.
And this wasn't that long ago, 7 years ago, 5 years ago.
Wow.
And you'd have your name on the tab. And then when you're done with it, you'd email that to the next person and they'd copy and paste the rows. And I mean, that worked for a while, but the CEO there, it would take him about a month and a half.
Wow.
So the salespeople would quote something and then they'd get it and then the purchasing and they'd build it and this whole thing. Month and a half to 2 months to find out what his gross margin was on that particular order because somebody had to gather all this stuff together.
Right.
And the spreadsheets and put it together.
Consolidate it manually.
Yeah. And he came to me and he said, look, if I could just gain a 1% improvement over the profit ratio here, this is going to pay for itself easily.
Mm.
And we sat down with him and we said, okay, let's take a look at your flow. And we built a system, custom system.
Oh.
It cost some money to do that, but everything changed because they could see immediately what adjustments were needed when quoting it so that they could keep their margins. They could do literally twice as much. They could do a lot more with the same amount of people, the quality control and everything.
Right.
Now, my point is would that have worked without doing that forever? Maybe, but spreadsheets are going away slowly, right?
Right.
So there are external forces. So initially, he wanted to innovate first.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to invest in this,
Mm-hmm.
which was good because eventually he would have had to, right?
Right. Right. It was either do it by choice or, to your point, the kicking and screaming out of necessity down the road. Yeah.
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 And the type of technology I'm talking about for our customers this is all custom stuff, right? The old days, I don't know. Do you remember Egghead software?
Mm-hmm.
This kind of thing where if you wanted software, you'd go to a software store.
Right.
And you'd buy it off the shelf, just like you did movies at Blockbuster, right?
Yeah, in a box.
But it did one thing.
Yeah, exactly.
And maybe it helped you in your business.
Yeah.
But those one size fits all don't really work anymore because everybody has their own process and system.
Right, right.
So custom software is a way that businesses are using the technology to separate themselves from their competitors.
Right. If I think about sort of the value chain or the value stream for most companies, I would imagine software plugs into almost every step in the value chain. And when you use a term like custom, if I'm thinking about from the beginning of my supply chain with my vendors all the way through to trying to drive repurchase all the way past the point of purchase into driving repurchase based on what we've learned about the customer. That's a broad window of what you could offer or help clients think through. I can imagine if you sit down and learn about a company, you can see all the different ways you could be helpful. How do you help them kind of think through how to solve problems? Does that question make sense?
Yes, it does. What's interesting is typically what we see, just like you described, their dependence on, let's say, technology as tools have evolved through maybe a first piece, which was a CRM system that they use to track sales and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's great. You don't want to.
Or an ERP or something like that.
Oh, yeah. And accounting software to do that, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
No, nobody's asking anybody to recreate accounting software or even a CRM if you're using it just for sales.
Right.
And then you have access to, let's say, your vendor. Maybe they've offered an API, something, and they have a portal that you do.
Mm-hmm.
So the beauty of it is tying these pieces together kind of seamlessly so there's not all these points of contact to bridge that little flow, that one thing that's causing extra work, mistakes,
right,
matching, timing issues. It's not about building that universe from beginning to end.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't make sense at all. It's about the pieces. Even a mobile app, it just reaches into the existing systems, whatever they are, and does calls. It's like turn on, turn off, right?
Right.
Or your existing database and stuff.
Right.
So I think it's a great question. I think it's filling in the gaps with the custom. How's that?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
And it's really pretty easy to do. And I've seen over the years, the people that created software, the products, they like to build closed systems.
Mm-hmm.
And those closed systems, I don't think they're lasting. They're closing because the customers are going to systems where you can access this because they need their own custom piece to it.
Right.
I remember we were asked to solve problems for the restaurant industry to integrate with their POS systems. These are the systems that run all the orders, the servers, the kitchen stuff.
Yeah. Point of sale. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, point of sale, right.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And they were almost all closed systems. It's like, no, we own this. There's no way this restaurant is going to hire a vendor. That's changed now. I mean, we build systems for how individual national chains tip out their servers and everything.
Huh.
And they build these systems that are totally integrated into their POS, but it's a tool.
Right.
So there is a trend. These closed systems,
you're going the way of the dinosaur.
They are. And I think it's because of what I was speaking about is that the nuanced innovation, even that little extra bit, even though I'm using this tool, I'm using this tool, I'm using this tool,
mm-hmm.
they're not quite connecting in this seamless way that takes them all to a new level.
Right. I would imagine, I'm on the outside of what you do looking in, kind of, on the periphery, but
Mm-hmm.
I would imagine that things changed pretty dramatically with the introduction of APIs.
Yeah.
Would that be a fair, as I'm hearing you talk about the connecting things and everything, APIs come to mind for me, but maybe there was a technology that kind of pushed that before that.
No, I think the API is the magic, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's that connection point and the security built around that and how you can have these individual worlds or realms of data or whatever it is, but still have them communicate and control that. And that's most of what we deal with because they remain their own proprietary systems.
Right. That's the cool part.
Mm-hmm.
My understanding of APIs is I can keep 98% of my data private and share the 2% that's needed to connect it to the next step in the process or what have you.
Right.
You don't have to grant full access, which I think was probably, as you were talking about this sort of completely closed systems, best of both worlds kind of approach where you don't have to open the doors all the way. You can just crack a window.
Right.
And just let out the piece that's needed to make the connection.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And for the people that own software, it allows them a revenue model where they can sell just a piece of their stuff.
Mm.
And if somebody doesn't want this whole functionality, it's like, okay, then we license you just the bit that you do want.
Right.
And it's not an all or nothing.
You in an advisory business, how do you create the links between not in the software, but in the real world, between human beings and companies? Because I can imagine you're going to help map out if I'm looking for a solution, you're going to help me identify what's needed and map it out and sort of think about how it's constructed and implemented. Are you going to be the one building the APIs, connecting, creating the different worlds? How does that work?
Yeah. So actually, most clients come to us with their problem in hand and their kind of an idea of what they think the solution is.
Okay.
Here's a problem we have, and we know it's technology related because I got this technology over here and this over here, and they're not communicating, and we're having to export here and then manually do this and then import there. There seems to be a way that there could be something. So that's very simplified, but there's all different levels.
Yeah, right.
Or they'll say, look, I got all this equipment out in the field, and every time we have to change something, I got to send somebody out there with the laptop and plug it in.
I see.
Can I just change it on my laptop? They come to us with that level. And then we're all like, yeah, absolutely. Okay, let's ask you some questions here. These pieces of equipment, do they have any kind of cellular or access to internet right now? No, they don't. Okay, all right. Okay, we're going to have to figure that out for you. So we can ask these series of questions and tell them, okay, so here's your various options from platinum.
Right.
Very, very nice, but everybody has a budget to this, and here's the things that you can do. And then we build it for them. We build it, yeah. Sara Tasa we call ourselves a technology consulting company. The consulting is that part when they come to us is designing it, engineering it, and then building it and deploying it for them and then maintaining it for them.
Okay, so your partnership with them goes all the way through to deployment.
Oh, yeah.
That's great. That's rare.
And most times even longer than that, because software needs to be maintained. You can't just write it and leave it alone. It ages. The code doesn't age, but the environment that it lives in changes. There's updates.
Yeah.
There could be a security flaw. And just over time, it gets old. So you have to maintain this. And also, most of our customers, they continually innovate their product. So they start using it. And then the field workers going like, look, every time I do this, I go into these spots that don't have cell connection, then I can't get the work order. I got to drive back down the hill. Well, they call us up and we'll say, okay, well, what we could do is offline mode. So when they log in, we'll download all the stuff. They can view it. If it can't send, it'll wait, it'll send it later. So again, that innovation typically comes from the business.
Right.
Because we can't know all the nuances. It's driven by need.
Right. Yeah. And I would imagine part of getting maximum value, maybe this is my next question, but part of getting maximum value out of collaborating with a partner like you is having the transparency internally to get the insights needed to really feed you the problems that need to be solved. If your field folks don't feel like they can talk about what's going on, or if they don't have the opportunity to share, this is the pain point I'm having in the field. And if people don't take that seriously and react to it, you're not going to build a solution to solve it because you won't ever know that it's a problem.
You're right. That is a challenge when a business treats the relationship as a vendor. Like, don't tell me what I need. I told you I needed to do this and this, and just please don't ask questions. That's almost like you going to your doctor or your attorney or your accountant and not being honest with them. You're not going to get right. You're right. We need to know. And we've had those, and those exist, and those are terrible relationships. Usually those are the kickers and screamers because they don't want to do this.
Right.
And the person that is innovating proactively, they seem to be curious. They want to ask the questions.
Right.
So what's possible? Oh, wow. Does that cost more? Okay, I don't want to do that yet, but can we do it later? Yeah, okay. It's very good. They're excited. The kickers and screamers are like, how come it costs so much? I don't want it to do that.
Right.
And it's like, do what I say.
Right.
Yeah. So it is always a challenge. And I told you that most people come to us and they have an idea of what the solution is. Maybe they've seen something similar or they've connected the dots. It is our job to really be careful a little bit and dig a little further and say, okay, I understand what they're asking for, but is this really what they're asking for? In other words, will this solve the problem? Because it sounds so on the surface, but is this really going to do it?
Right, right.
Yeah.
It's the difference between giving people what they want and giving them what they need
Yeah.
to solve the problem. Yeah. That is a delicate balance. I can only imagine in your space.
It is delicate. And again, it's a little more difficult with technology because technology, it's so intangible. It's like, well, show it to me. Well, I can't show you the code. You can't make sense of it. We're going to have to.
Right. Yeah.
And now it works. You looked at it, but let's implement it into the field or in production and see whether or not the people using it, they could be stumbling left and right over one field that we put in the wrong screen. It should be someplace else. And nobody mentioned it. We go through all these processes. And yes, there's a lot of frustration because now this innovation took us backwards and is frustrating everybody. Almost equate it to build this nice, beautiful structure. And I equate it to like a house and you build it and you say, okay, let's go in and take a look at it. And the front door frame is off just a little bit and it sticks and you can't go in, right? And it's like client's angry. This whole thing, this whole house is a piece of,
ruined. Yeah.
You're like, no. It's beautiful. This is such a minor little thing. The path to innovation, it's not automatic, right? It's also, well, we keep on talking about the tools, and then there's the adoption because you're using the tools.
Right.
And the people, I mean, there's resistance too, right?
For sure.
We don't even have to get into the whole subject of resistance to change is like.
That's human nature.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've been using this spreadsheet for 20 years. There's no way this new thing is going to work because I can't see all the rows at once. It's like, well, you don't really need to necessarily. You only need to see the roads that, anyway.
Yeah.
No, the road to innovation is bumpy sometimes. It really is. And you really need a thought leader or a commander, or I don't know what you call it, somebody that has the authority to make decisions and bring it home that leadership trusts and to get through those rough points. Because if not, it doesn't work. It never gets there.
So well said, and brings up a lot of moments from my career. It's so important to have someone who basically says, yes, I know it's hard. Yes, I know it's more expensive and taking longer than you think it should. But this is the road we need to be on, and this is the right thing for the organization. And I'm excited about it. And here's why you should be excited about it too. Because we don't know. Nobody knows.
Right.
That's why you bring in experts. And it's always tough because we want things to be a certain way, but that's not the way the world works.
Right.
I want this done next week, but that's not the way things work. And so you're exactly right. That leader has got to play the role of kind of the adult in the room to say, I know you want this now, but you can't have it now. We're going to get it later and it's going to be great.
Yeah. And they really need to understand how they need to make sure that it is truly innovation, because what is not innovation? It's we need to do this because the world needs this new interface on our mobile app. And it's crucial. Look at market share and stuff where they're being mistaken this technology that seems really neat, that really is not going to provide real innovation for the company. It's not going to make them more relevant or hardly more relevant or help with quality control or optimizing the processes or make them more bottom line or do anything. Yet you have the champion that thinks it is. And that's why you got to be very careful. That's why I tie it together. I always tie it to the end. Which one of these things is it going to do and by how much?
Right. Yeah. It almost sounds like, based on your list, it almost sounds like the illusion of relevance.
Yes.
Where there are real times where we've got to do this to keep up. We've got to do this to stay relevant. But falling in love with the technology and kind of tricking yourself into this illusion of relevance for this new shiny gizmo.
It's easy to do.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I even have to catch myself sometimes. I mean, shiny new, right?
Yeah.
It's like, is it really We deal with this with startups a lot because they're trying to create the next new thing. So they really don't have anything to compare it to. For businesses, fortunately, if it's a well-run business, you have somebody at the top that's saying, okay, show me the ROI. How is this going to make us money in the short term and long term? Is this forever? Are we a technology company now because of this?
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Yeah, you got to be very careful with that because now too much dependence, it could be okay. It just needs to be thought through.
Right. That makes sense. Speaking of thinking things through, I want to ask you about advice you have for innovators. But I specifically would love for you to comment in the context of most of the time when business owners talk to someone like you, it's in the context of potential working relationship. So should we use your technology? Should we leverage what have you? It's very rare to have an opportunity to get advice from someone with your experience outside of that environment. So do you have any just general advice for how to think about these sorts of problems? Does that question make sense?
Yeah, I think so. I think I understand what you're asking. Well, first thing I would say is check your emotions at the door, just like any other shopping experience, right?
Yes.
Buying a car. Well, I mean, what is the car going to do, right? Is this utility or whatever? Are you going to be sitting in front of the Lamborghini place? Is this a toy thing? You really got to check yourself and not allow you or the people, because typically you're going to check in with people, maybe somebody that knows younger technology, somebody you check around. I would say, now we're talking business again.
That's right. Yeah.
I would say, if you think you have a solution of some kind, like you saw somebody doing something using technology, I would say don't try to apply that to your problem necessarily and say you found a solution. You could start with that saying, hey, look, somebody has a problem similar to mine and they solved it with technology. Focus on the challenges for the business.
Okay.
Let the consulting company work with you through ideas. I've seen it a few too many times where they've fallen in love with this solution, this technology solution, that isn't necessarily a great fit. There's other ways to do it. So it's a great starting point, right? Look at our competitor. Our competitor is doing this with their mobile app. They got this mobile app and, oh my God, they're probably doing better than us. And clients are probably ordering this stuff and there's a solution. So now they say, okay, we need a mobile app
right,
to keep us relevant. Well, let's start with the problem. Are you losing market share? Well, I don't know. Well, come on, this is expensive. Are people really buying the lumber off this mobile app or whatever the competitor thing is?
right.
Let's look at that. And let's look at the logistics. Even if they were, could you keep your price point? Let's really look at this.
That's so great.
In other words, go back to the problem trying to solve and keep it simple.
Yeah.
It could grow. So the other thing is most people don't understand it. You kind of think of custom software as like a custom house or building a car. It's like, it's done. I hope I built it right.
Right.
Well, software's never done. You don't have to build the whole thing. You could start with something which we call a minimum viable product or lean development. It's like, let's build the pure minimum, just the first thing you said, the problem you're trying to solve. Okay, you've identified a problem that you're trying to get more efficient, and then you're brainstorming. You got this list of all these things you want it to do. That's great. Let's start with the first one and see, did it do it? And if it does, keep adding and use your efficiencies. Use these newfound efficiencies to pay for additional efficiencies instead of trying to build an entire monster all at once.
Right.
And to follow up on that, the innovation should be incremental. It should start right away, I think, if you're going to, and just keep it evolving. Because if you find yourself behind your competitors, you can't catch up just with money. Because the time was there too. So they're on version 4.
Right.
And they're used to dealing with software developers, and they fired one, and now they have a good one. They've gone through all the pains. You can't just catch up.
Oh, wow.
With the innovation, you can't just leapfrog necessarily. It's really hard to do. You have to go through all the micro steps of technology innovation.
And that iterative nature of the innovation process is not what you see. What you see is the mobile app launch. You don't see all the things you just described
Right.
that they've already done. And then the short-sighted question is someone to a consulting firm could be, how do I get what they have? And the hard answer is you're going to have to go through those same loops and all those other things, that same learning cycle on a different set of problems because you have a different back end. You're a different company.
You said that perfectly. Yeah. You can't just get there.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're going to have to experience different iterations and challenges.
Right.
And by the end of the day, what you're going to have is something that doesn't look like that, maybe, but it's better.
Right.
Could be better.
Right. With someone like you guiding them, because there are companies, I'm sure, that would just say, yeah, I can build you a mobile app and it'll take this long and here you go.
Right. And that's a big struggle that we're, competitors. It's just, we want this, and this. We drew it out. We kind of know what we want. Build it. There's lots of people that will just build that. And then you look at it and say, well, this didn't really solve our problem. It does do what it does, but it doesn't really help us innovate. It's not innovative for us. It's just a tech.
Right.
It's just a software tool that is actually just frustrating everybody. And so that's not innovation.
Right. That is not innovation.
That is not innovation.
A fantastic example of what isn't innovation. Nik, this has been a great conversation. Learned so much, so many things I'm going to apply to my business as well in terms of how to think about leveraging technology in an innovative way. Nik Froehlich, CEO and founder of Sara Tasa. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you, Jared. It's been a great conversation.
All right. Take care. Thanks so much for listening. Please subscribe on your favorite podcast platform to get more insights from innovators across the world. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel for additional content and conversation. I hope to see you there. Until next time, keep innovating, whatever that means.